President Bola Tinubu has condemned the bomb attacks which resulted in the loss of precious lives and the maiming of other citizens in Goza local government area of Borno State. The president describes the attacks as desperate acts of terror and a clear manifestation of the pressure mounted against terrorists and the success achieved in degrading their capacity to launch offensives. In a statement, President Tinubu declares that the purveyors of wanton violence would have a certain encounter with justice and that these cowardly attacks are only but an isolated episode, as his government will not allow the nation to slither into an era of fear, tears, sorrow and blood. The president states that his administration is taking necessary measures to secure citizens. Meanwhile, the death toll from the coordinated bomb attacks has increased to 18, according to a statement released by the Borno State Emergency Management Agency. The fatalities include children, adult males, females, and pregnant women. Some critically injured individuals have been taken to the Borno State General Hospital for intensive care and treatment. It was a Black Saturday in Borno State, and indeed, not just Borno State, but in Nigeria as a whole. Yeah. 18 as the official count, different figures, different quarters, but really sad, unfortunate incident on Saturday. Your take on this story?
I mean, very sad one. 18 official count, probably might be more, because when you say official count, probably there might be a possibility of more. But let's get to brass tacks. Suicide bombers, coordinated attacks, women. And I've always had a problem with the way we are so quick to reintegrate people into the society. I think we should keep them longer, look at their mindset before we do that reintegration, because it's also important. And we also have to be careful, and hence when the Borno State government was talking about quickly remarrying people that had come back from Boko Haram capture and things like that, let's hold on a bit, because most of them might be radicalized and they might be sent back with different ideology. It is not to also say that society should stigmatize against them. But we need to do that effective work of de-radicalization. How do we do it? It's not quick, it's not fast, it's not pepper soup and jollof rice, it's not Ashrabi sewing for them, it's not Operation Suluhu. It's a concerted effort where we might need psychoanalysts, psychologists, and gradually putting money aside for proper reintegration into society. It's a holistic work that goes so many years. In fact, I would also want to, in turn, say that we must also put funding aside for post-traumatic stress syndrome among our military that have been fighting for a very long time. Because most of our military officers that are coming back from the war, they are dealing with a lot of post-trauma syndrome. So it's about money and mental health and mental well-being should be put aside for them. That's number one. Number two, we must be able to buffer our intelligence architecture. How did this slip through the cracks? How can we be more discerning? And I'd like to enjoin the residents of Borno, if you see anything on Goza, say something. Please, you must be able to fill in the information, because if we have coherent information, the information system will not be able to pick this up. So the NSA should come in strong as regards this. How can we bolster intelligence gathering and all of that? How can we also infiltrate these people to be able to get information? Thirdly, we now have to do a proper reconnaissance and mop-up among our military and other fighting troops across that path. How can we take the fight to these people, and how can we eliminate them and decimate them? I always hear the argument by the government that, oh, it's because we're winning the war, that's why they're targeting soft targets. But these are still targets. It still puts them in the news, and this nefarious and faceless bandits should never be in the news. So how can we mop them up and take the fight to them? And the last fight of the fight is economic warfare. How can we bring forward economic development in those areas? Because we also need to fight poverty that leads to that level of insecurity and makes it easy for people to be able to recruit. So we must also bring economic, development around there, get people jobs, get people better means of living, so that they might not be used by this bandit and it's harder for them to de-radicalize, and also use the media as a tool.
All right. Dr. Bati?
Okay. Well, back to the past, so it seems. Because suicide bombing was something that belonged to the past, with government, one after the other, saying, oh, we've been able to decimate the population of the Boko Haramis, the terrorists, the insurgents, now in a very dramatic fashion. We had two major attacks over the weekend in Goza, in Borno State, Goza, were suicide bombers. 30 women, we were told, decorated with, improvised explosive devices. Only 4 of them were able to explode those devices at a wedding ceremony, at a funeral, at a hospital, and look at the extent of the destruction of lives and property. Now, that shows clearly that this was a coordinated attack. Out of 30 suicide bombers, only 4 succeeded. Now, what if those 30, and all of them female? So the question to ask is, what progress have we really made with this fight against terrorism, with this fight against insurgency? Goza was on Saturday. On Sunday, Monguno, another location in the northern part of Borno State, also had attacks, and more people died, back to back. It was a weekend of horror, and hence we are horrified, we are depressed that this has happened. Hospitals in Maiduguri were overstretched to the very limit. Well, most unfortunate. And it's good that the president has issued a statement through his spokesperson to say that the people who are behind this will be brought to justice. But it's not enough to just issue a statement. What is more important, what Nigerians are interested in, is to see a de-escalation. One of the achievements that the Buhari administration was quoting was that, they've been able to succeed with the fight against terror. Even the Nigerian military, we have had cause to praise them here when they bring reports and they say, we have arrested this so number of persons. But look at the scale of what happened in Borno State. Borno State is the epicenter of terror in Nigeria, as it were. And yet we've seen what looks like a resurgence. Now, no effort should be spared in investigating the root cause of this. Who is producing those improvised electronic devices? Who is recruiting the suicide persons who volunteer themselves? Now, the extent of the tragedy that we face is that you have young ladies who are willing to die just to pursue a particular cause. That is what makes our situation. So at the end of the day, we are all victims. The persons at the theater of the tragedy and the rest of us in Nigeria, because Borno may look like it's so far away, but it's so close to us because we're talking here about human beings. It's not even about the number. Even if it was one person that died in the process, these are Nigerians. And they had to die, they had to suffer skull fracture because Nigeria happened to them. When you hear in this country that Nigeria happened to Mr. X, it's always a tragedy. Why is it that we don't say Nigeria happens to somebody in a positive sense? That is the big problem that we face. President Tinubu has his work cut out for him. After all, the responsibility of government is to make sure that we are all safe. Not just citizens, even visitors, even anybody at all within this geographical environment. The military, they've said, well, they are committed to protecting this environment. Yes, we have commended them, but incidents like this, frighten us. The other point to be made is that nobody should play politics with it. Because I've read some comments by politicians. To be specific, a statement by Waziri Adamawa, he commiserated. Governors have also commiserated. Emergency agencies have also said they tried their best. But what is important is that nobody should play politics with this. This is not the time to be making political partisan statements. Because, as I said, we are all in it. We are all affected.
We are all affected. Now, when it comes to using women as suicide bombers. It is definitely headline grabbing. I mean, suicide bombing at any level would attract media attention, but in particular, when you hear the fact that women are used as suicide bombers, then it becomes even more of a conversation topic. And I say this because we've seen a recent hike, not just in Nigeria, but around the world, increase in the number of women being used as as suicide bombers. I use the word used very deliberately. Now, there isn't enough or sufficient data around the number of women who have been used as suicide bombers or why, but investigations or interviews with women who have come out of perhaps captivity under terrorist hold have said that a number of them are coerced into taking this option. Now, the description of what happened on Saturday states that because of the hijab-wearing female who detonated the bombs, it attracted less attention. That's one. So they're able to easily hide the bombs than perhaps the men. The second is that there's less scrutiny when you see a woman going to a large gathering like the wedding, the funeral that this happened on Saturday. Again, less scrutiny. And then there are also soft targets. If there are suspicions around any woman, it's very difficult to manhandle or shoot on sight as you would easily, perhaps, because of the nature or the perception of women, and in some parts they use children as soft targets for suicide bombing. But this has to then be looked into because this is becoming more prevalent. And this is unfortunate. Like the president said, and I think that he was very spot on, and I like I must commend the fact that he spoke very, in true leadership style, that we weren't going to condone this. We're not going back to the era where people lived in fear, sorrow, tears, and that very importantly, the military would deal with this. And I'm hoping that it would be more talk, it would be more action than talk. But he said the right words, and we're looking forward to commensurate, following action after that speech. We cannot in any way give undue attention to the evil of terrorism that's happened in the Northeast. I say happened because we've seen a bit, more sanity. I was in Maiduguri about last year or 2 years ago, and I had the opportunity to speak to the people themselves, and they testified that the military had indeed done incredible work in that area to secure lives and property and to make them feel safer. And so this is certainly a drawback, and it's disappointing and disheartening and sad to see this happen again in Gwoza, in Borno State, where there's been relative peace, commensurate to what had happened in the past. Now, going back to suicide bombers and what could potentially be attractive for them, Rufai said something which I stated last week, and I'll still emphasize on that. There's the military action part of things where the military have gone in and done very well in that area. But in the other aspect are the root causes of why people would be why terrorism would be attractive for people. If there's no economic development, if poverty continues to reign in these areas, there's no infrastructural development, there's no investment and attraction or incentive to go towards education, to be educated, then when the lures and the lies perpetrated by these terrorists to attract people to kill themselves, for fame, rewards for their family members, going to paradise, then it will become a bit more attractive. So whilst we handle the harder part of things, we must also be able to tell ourselves the truth that if the root cause is not dealt with, then we'll continue to see more attraction for people to be lured into a life of crime. Moving on to our next story, JRB Solar Investment Limited, a leading company in renewable energy, has held the first edition of the Renewable Energy Essay Writing Contest for Federal Capital Territory schools as a first step to raising awareness on environmental sustainability and clean energy. Arise correspondent Godfrey Eshimoge has more.
This essay writing contest is a way of starting a conversation around clean energy transition among Nigeria's young population. This is an event that witnessed lots of presentations by school children with focus on renewable energy. Premier International School Abuja emerged as overall winner of the competition, going away with a grand prize of 500,000 naira.
I think that climate change can be avoided or at least alleviated if we continue to move into the era of using more renewable energy sources like solar energy, wind energy, because the reason for climate change is depletion of the ozone layer, and that's caused by gas emissions.
The executives of JRB Solar Investment Limited say there is so much in store.
We are trying to bridge that gap with the energy demand and the energy supply in the country. That is why you can see our head office is powered by over 182 kilowatts peak of solar power, and it is solely dependent on solar. There is no other. We are not connected to national grid. We are not connected to any diesel generator. And this power has been serving us for over 3 years and getting to the 4th year right now.
We are trying to expand the program next year. So this is the maiden edition. So we did this by test running with the FCT. By next year, it's going to be national GRB price for renewable energy, and it's going to be extended to all the 36 states and the FCT. So after the test running with the FCT, we can see the success. So we will work on it and ensure that it will be something that we make renewable energy much more practice in Nigeria or used.
JRB Solar Investment Limited is a company that specializes in providing tailor-made solar solutions. Renewable energy is the next big thing, and potentially Nigerians will very soon begin to sing hallelujah.